Hi everyone, welcome back to the Be Kind, Be Happy podcast. My name is Byron, and welcome to the first episode of the Be Kind, Be Happy read along. For today's inaugural episode, I'll be reading to you it's a famous Buddhist parable. The title is called The Grateful Elephant. Hope you enjoy. In the past time, when Brahmadatta ruled at Benares, there was a carpenter's settlement not far from Benares. In this settlement lived 500 carpenters that would go upstream in a boat, cut timber for building materials for houses in the forest, and prepare houses for one or more stories on the spot. Then, marking all the timbers, beginning with the pillars, they would carry them down the riverbank, load them on a boat, return to the city with the current, and for a price, build for any particular person any particular kind of house he desired to have built. Then they would go back to the forest and get building materials once more. Thus they made their living. One day, not far from the camp, there were One day, not far from the camp where they were fashioning timbers, a certain elephant trod on an acacia splinter, and the splinter pierced his foot. He suffered intense pain, and his foot became swollen and festered. Maddened, maddened with pain, hearing the sound of those carpenters fashioning timbers, thinking to himself, with the help of these carpenters, I can get relief. He went to them on 3 feet and lay down not far off. The carpenters saw that his foot was swollen, and on drawing closer saw the splinter in his foot. So, making incisions around the splinter with a sharp knife, they tied a cord to the splinter, removing the splinter with a pull, let out the pus, washed the wound with hot water, and by applying proper remedies, in not very long time, made the wound comfortable again for the elephant. When the elephant was well, he thought, I owe my life to these carpenters. Now I ought to do something for them. From that time on, he helped the carpenters remove trees, rode them over, and held them for the carpenters while they were fashioning them, brought them their tools, and held the measuring cord, taking it by the end and wrapping his trunk around it. As for the carpenters, when it was time to eat, each one of them gave the elephant a morsel of food. Thus, in all, they gave him 500 morsels of food because there were 500 carpenters. Now that elephant had a son, and he was pure white, a noble son of the noble sire. So the following thought occurred to the elephant: I am now old. I ought therefore to give my son to these carpenters to help them in their work, and myself go away. Without saying a word to the carpenters, he entered the forest, and leading his son to the carpenters, said, This young elephant is my son. You gave me your life. You gave me my life. I give you this elephant by way of paying the fee which I owe to my physicians. Henceforth he will work for you. Then he admonished his son. Henceforth you are to do it whatever your duty is to do. Having said so, he gave his son to the carpenters and himself entered the forest. From that time on, the young elephant obeyed the commands of the carpenters, was patient of admonition, performed all of his duties. They fed him also with 500 morsels of food. After doing his work, he would descend into the river and play, and thus come back. And the carpenter's children used to take hold of him by the trunk and play with him, both in the water and on dry land. Now, noble animals, whether elephants or horses or human beings, never dung or stale in the water. Therefore, he also did not dung or stale in the water, but attended to nature's deeds out of the water, right there on the riverbank. And so this is where he's referring to pooing. He doesn't poo in the water, he poos does the nature's deed out of the water right on the riverbank. Now one day the god rained up the river. A half-dry cake of elephant dung washed away by the rainwater came down the river and drifted along until it stuck and lodged in a clump of bushes near the landing place of the city of Benares. Now, the king's elephant keeper, with a thought in their minds, will, will let the elephants bathe, led 500 elephants to the riverbank. Smelling the odor of the dung of a noble elephant, not a single elephant would descend into the river, but all whisked up their tails and started to run away. So, as you can see, there was a lot of respect from the other elephants regarding the noble elephant, which was the son of the, the main elephant of the story. The elephant keepers told the elephant trainers, thought the latter. There must be some offensive object in the water. So they had the water purified, and seeing the dung of the noble elephant in that clump of bushes, and knowing that's what's the trouble here, they had a chatty about, filled with water and dung dissolved in it, and therewith the bodies of the elephant sprinkled. Their bodies became sweet-scented, and they descended into the river and bathed. So now the elephants were not afraid of the water anymore because they had soaked themselves with the same water. The elephant trainers reported that incident to the king, remarking, "That noble elephant ought to be sought and brought to you, your majesty." The king made haste up the river with boats and rafts. With rafts bound upstream, he reached the place of abode of the carpenters. The young elephant, playing in the river, on hearing the sound of the drums, went and stood by the carpenters. The carpenters went forth to meet the king and said, "Your majesty, if you have need of timber, why did you come yourself? Why shouldn't you have sent men to get it?" "I didn't come for timber, I assure you, but I came for this elephant." "Take him and go, your majesty." The young elephant would not go. "What, pray?" He had 100,000 pieces of money laid near each of the elephant's 4 feet, near his trunk, and near his tails. But for that the elephant would not go. When, however, pairs of cloth had been given to all the carpenters, when undergarments had been given to the carpenters' wives, and the proper attention had been paid to the children he played with, then the elephant turned round, and eyeing the carpenters and their wives and the children as he went, accompanied the king. The king took the elephant, went to the city, and caused both city and elephant stable to be adorned. He caused the elephant to make rightwise circuit of the city and to be taken into the elephant stable. He adorned the elephant with all the adornments, sprinkled him, made him his riding animal, elevated him to the dignity of a friend, gave him half his kingdom, and had him treated as himself. From the day when the elephant arrived, the king obtained complete mastery over the land of the rose apple. So as you can see, this elephant, this noble elephant, has very particular special powers. And as time thus went on, the future Buddha received a new conception in the wound of the chief consort of that king. When her unborn child was ripe for birth, the king died. Now, if the elephant had known that the king was dead, it would have broken his heart then and there. So they did not say a word to the elephant about the king's death, but waited on him just as if nothing had happened. But when the king of Kosala, who ruled over the country immediately adjoining, heard that the king was dead, he reflected, "The kingdom, they say, is empty," and came with a large army and surrounded the city. The citizens closed the gates of the city and sent the following message to the king of Kosala. The chief consort of our king is about to give birth to a child. The truth-sayers have told us 7 days hence she shall give birth to a son. If on the seventh day she gave birth to a son, we will give battle, not the kingdom. Wait that long. Very well, said the king in assent. On the seventh day the queen gave birth to a son. On the day he received his name, because, as they said, he is born extending a noble heart to the magnitude. They gave him the name Noble Heart and Nilas Chitta. From that day on he was born. Now from the day he was born, the citizens fought with the king of Kosala, but because they had no man to lead them in battle, the force, large as it was, gave way little by little in the conflict. Ministers reported this fact to the queen, saying, "We fear that if the forces continue thus to give way, we shall lose the battle. But the state elephant, the king's friend, does not know that the king is dead, that his son is born, and that the king of Kasala has come to fight." And they asked her, "Shall we let him know?" "Yes," said the queen, assenting. She adorned the boy, laid him in a head coil of fine cloth, came down from the terrace, and accompanied by a retinue of ministers, went to the elephant stable and laid the future Buddha at the feet of the elephant. Said she, "Master, your friend is dead." He didn't tell you. We didn't tell you because we were afraid it would break your heart. Here is the son of your friend. The king of Kosala has come and has surrounded the city and is fighting with your son. The force is giving way. Do you either kill your son or get and give him to the kingdom? Do you either kill your son or get and give him the kingdom? Then the elephant, with his trunk, caressed the future Buddha and lifted him up and put him on his own shoulders, and cried and wept. Then he lowered the future Buddha and laid him in the arms of the queen, and with the words, "I will capture the king of Kosala," went out to the elephant stable. Then the ministers clad him with armor and adorned him, and unlocking the city gate, went out in his train. As the elephant went to the city, he trumpeted the heron's call, making the multitude tremble and quake, and frightening them away. He broke down the stockade, seized the king of Kosala by the top knot, and carried him and laid him at the future Buddha's feet. And when men rose to kill him, he would not let them, but set the king free with the admonition, "Henceforth be careful. Do not presume on the youth of the king. Do not presume the youth of the prince." Hence, hence, Thenceforth, the future Buddha had complete mastery over all of the land of the rose apple. No other adversary dared to stand up against him. When the future Buddha was 7 years old, he received the ceremonial sprinkling and became known as King Noble Heart. He ruled with righteousness, and when this life was come and when his life was come to an end, departed, fulfilling the path to heaven. When the teacher had related this parable, he uttered, as Supreme Buddha, the following pairs of stanzas. Relying on noble heart, a mighty host delighted, captured Kosala alive, dissatisfied with his army. He also so also the monk who had found a reliance, who exerts strenuous effort, who cultivates the exalted states to the attainments of nirvana, shall in due course reach the destruction of all bonds. So this is the end of the first parable in a book of 24 parables. I hope you've liked it. The story, once again, is titled The Grateful Elephant. And just a very short commentary on this parable before I finish off the video. I think that this this story is a very strong reflection on the importance of gratitude. The elephant obviously had strong integrity, strong gratitude in his character, and because of that, he was able to live a life of great meaning, great service, and great fulfillment. And at the end of his life, as stated in this story, he departed, fulfilling the path to heaven. And it's really, this story really touched me in many ways, partly because of his great respect to everyone that he served. First, he respected and served with honor the carpenters, and then the king, and then the prince, which turns out later on to become the Buddha, the future Buddha. And so I think because he was able to conduct himself with so much respect, everything he did at all parts of his life was done to the best of his ability, was done to his maximum potential. And if that's something that we can take from this story to apply in our everyday lives, I think regardless of where we are, regardless of what work we do, who we're with, why we are doing the things that we are doing, what our motivations are, regardless of all that, if we can find the intention from within to try our best, and this intention can be refined, this intention can be framed in a way that allows us to find meaning in what we do, even if something seems futile, something seems meaningless, something seems to lack purpose, we can reframe it with the right intention to create the meaning in itself. And if we are able to do that, we can do everything with a lot of heart, with a lot of diligence, with a lot of sincerity. And by doing that, regardless of what we're doing, regardless of who we're doing it with and where we are, we will be living the life that we want to live to the best of our ability and to achieve the maximum potential we can in everything that we do. Hope you like this story. This was actually a bit long, 17 minutes. But if you like it, please let me know. And if you have any other stories or other ideas that you'd like me to read with us together, please let me know in the comment section below. Thanks for now, and I'll see you again tomorrow in parable number 2. Okay, everyone, take care. Bye bye.